Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Merrill. Thank you, Yanni. And thank you, Pittsburgh. You've welcomed me many times to mourn, to remember, and to rededicate ourselves to living proudly as Jews. Thank you for opening your doors and your arms once again at this critical moment. We have 1 week to go. 1 week to turn the page, chart a new way forward, and elect my wife, Kamala Harris, as President of the United States. I'm so proud of the way that she has stepped up, shared her vision, and prosecuted the case against Donald Trump's unhinged and just un-American view of America and of our fellow Americans. And Kamala brings both joy and toughness to everything that she does. And this campaign is no different. Yesterday, we marked the anniversary of the deadliest anti-Semitic attack in American history, a massacre at Shabbat services not far from where we are right now. And 1 year after the October 7th Hamas terrorist attacks against Israel, we are all still reeling. So I want to talk about how we feel when we wake up and walk through the world and stare at the ceiling at night. It's an uncomfortable and unsettling time to be Jewish. These are hard days. But there is a pride in our people, but also a deep sense of insecurity. Like you, I know people who think twice about wearing a kippah or a Star of David publicly. Parents who are worried sick about their kids' safety on college campuses. Young people who aren't just afraid that they're going to grow up with fewer rights than their grandparents, but who are being targeted for being Jewish in ways that we thought only happened in our grandparents' time. Everywhere I go, people tell me they're also feeling something else, loneliness. In the rooms where you used to feel safe, you no longer feel welcome. And it didn't always feel this lonely to be Jewish in America. Like many of you, my family came to this country to escape these very fears. To feel this way in 2024, it's disorienting, it's disconcerting. But I'll tell you one place that I've never felt that, where I've actually felt the opposite. And that's in the home I share with Kamala Harris. Thank you. When we're shaken, we go home and talk to the people that we love. So after Charlottesville, after the Tree of Life, after October 7th, the person that I turned to and talked to was my wife. After Hamas brutally executed Hirsch and the other hostages, she and I grieved together. And when we see the anti-Semitic attacks that are happening week by week in America, like the students wearing kippot who were assaulted while walking to the Hillel on this very campus, like the Federation building in Detroit that was vandalized on the anniversary of October 7th, like the historic synagogue in Philadelphia that was defiled just last week, like the man who was shot in Chicago while walking to Shabbat services just 2 days ago. Kamala and I recommit ourselves to extinguishing this epidemic of hate. And let me make something else clear. We are not afraid and we do not cower. We take inspiration from communities like this one. which came together as one after Tree of Life. And from those Pitt students who say they wear the signs of their Judaism even more proudly since being attacked. We heard the anti-Semitic and racist speeches at Trump's Madison Square rally yesterday. It's appalling to hear these slurs, especially in the closing days of a presidential campaign, and even more painful to hear them on the anniversary of the massacre at Tree of Life. But nothing, and I mean nothing, will stop me from living fearlessly as a Jew. Nothing will stop Kamala and me from speaking out, and nothing is going to take away our joy or our faith in America. Kamala is someone whose conviction and compassion is driven by empathy as well as experience. She hears the stories of people who practice a different faith, and especially those who are targeted because of it, and she comes away with a sense of personal responsibility. And she knows how deeply our community has been re-traumatized about our fears about the future. So let me make this clear. This is not just a footnote in her agenda. Bringing us together, defending those who are wronged, disparaged, and excluded is the essence of her life and her leadership. And that is what we need in the Oval Office, isn't it? Now, anyone can say the right things on the campaign trail and then go home and turn it off. But that's not Kamala. Because when Kamala walks through the door at the end of the day, that door has a mezuzah on it. And 3 months from now, with your help, the White House residents could, I got to check first, could have a mezuzah on its doorpost. Now, let me be direct and answer the question that Jews have asked for generations. Yes, she feels it in her gut. Kamala feels it, as we say, in her kishkis. Oh, that's how my mom says it. Her commitment to the security of Israel is unwavering. And I know this not just because of what she said publicly, though she has said this through her entire career consistently, but also by what she does and says when it's just us. I've talked to her before and after her calls with Israel's leaders and diplomats. I mean, she takes seriously her pledge, and I'm going to quote Kamala here, to always ensure Israel has what it needs to defend itself from Iran and Iran-backed terrorists. Those are her words. And I saw her determination earlier this month after she spent hours in the Situation Room coordinating in real time with our military to shoot down the missiles Iran launched into Israel's skies. I've been next to her as she steeled herself with such care and compassion when she's meeting hostage families. And I've seen how those conversations both break her heart, but also strengthen her resolve. I know what's in her soul. She feels what you and I and Jews across America are feeling today. She gets it. And to tell you the truth, it's not just because she married a nice Jewish boy. To be honest, she's been working on a lot of these issues longer than I have. Growing up, she collected donations in those iconic blue and white tzedakah boxes to plant trees in Israel. As district attorney of San Francisco, she prosecuted anti-Semitic attacks as hate crimes. As Attorney General of California, she published an annual report on hate crimes. As a United States Senator, the first resolution she passed, the very first, was to speak out against anti-Semitism. Throughout her career, Kamala has strengthened the bonds between the United States and Israel, between the Israeli people and the American people. And she knows those bonds must remain strong regardless of which administration or leader is in power. And over the last year, Kamala has worked every day to bring the hostages home and for a ceasefire, to protect innocent civilians in Gaza and make sure aid gets to those in need, and for a reality in which Israel is secure and Palestinians know the dignity, freedom, and self-determination that they deserve. Throughout her career, Kamala has been crystal clear in pledging, and again, I'm going to use her words here, to always work to ensure the safety and security of the Jewish people here and around the world, and to support the existence of a secure, democratic homeland for the Jewish people. These are her words. When Kamala is president, she will continue to stand with Israel and with the Jewish community, our community. She will reject anti-Semitic hate and the notion that Israel does not have the right to exist. She rejects that. And Kamala also knows that the justice Judaism commands us to pursue is not only about foreign policy. It's also about ensuring everyone is respected, every vote is counted, and every woman has the freedom to make decisions about her own body. Like some of you, I've walked along the train tracks that led into, but not out of Auschwitz. I've spoken to Holocaust survivors who hear in the present-day propaganda and intolerance the echoes of the 1930s and warned us what was heading for America. Last year, I met with a survivor who escaped to present-day Ukraine from Germany during the Holocaust, but who has now been forced in her advanced age to escape to Germany from Ukraine. And I went with Kamala to visit Yad Vashem. Before we left, Kamala wrote a note to share how devastated she was by, as she put it, the silent testimonials of those who perished in the Shoah. Kamala hears the silence of those we lost. She hears the silence of those who looked the other way. And she was the one who urged me to use my voice. And that is why I've used this role as second gentleman to do the work of fighting anti-Semitism. That's right. It was Kamala who encouraged me to take up this mission as second gentleman. And I am so proud and honored to have helped the President and Vice President establish the first ever national strategy to counter anti-Semitism, which mobilizes the full force of the federal government to protect Jewish communities. And one thing we know about anti-Semitism is that those who discriminate against us discriminate against all of us. There are many Jews far more religiously observant than I am, but as I said to an Orthodox rabbi once, they hate us all equally. And another thing we know is that anti-Semites usually don't stop there. Those who hate Jews often hate Muslims, people of color, LGBTQ people, basically hate anyone who doesn't look or pray or think like they do. And a third thing we know about anti-Semitism is that whenever chaos and cruelty are given a green light, Jew hatred is historically not far behind. And that matters so much today because Donald Trump is nothing if not an agent of chaos and cruelty. People run for office for one of two reasons: to hold power or to lead people. And when you look at the candidates on your ballot, that is the choice. He is running for himself. She is running for you, for us. In fact, that distinction has been the driving force for each of them throughout their very different careers. He is a con man and a convicted criminal who tears down others. She is a prosecutor and a public servant who lifts people up. He has lost the support of those who worked with him closest, She proudly accepts their endorsements. He demeans immigrants with the same hateful slurs hurled at our ancestors, vermin, animals who poison the blood of our country. He scapegoats Jewish voters right to our faces, saying that if he loses, it will be the fault of Jews. He looks at Adolf Hitler's generals and sees something to admire. Just let that sink in. You do not reward someone like that with a platform or with power, and never again with the presidency. Now, you and I have heard the arguments that give Trump the benefit of the doubt despite all of his nonsensical, hateful rhetoric, despite his takeover of the Supreme Court, despite his insurrection at the Capitol, despite his promise to be dictator on day one. But this is different. Last time, there were people around him who checked his worst instincts. If there is a next time, they won't be there. The people who know that Trump should be nowhere near the Situation Room are the ones who will be locked out this time. And listen to what they are all saying right now. Just listen to his own vice president, his own chief of staff, his own defense secretary, his own national security advisor. They're all saying the same thing, that he's unfit to return to office. Donald Trump demands loyalty, but he is loyal to nothing or no one but himself. If it suited his selfish interests, Trump would turn his back on Israel and the Jewish people on a dime. He would do it. Whenever anti-Semitism rears its ugly head in this country, we should never have to wonder where our government stands. We should never have to wonder whether our leaders are praising Nazis behind closed doors. When I was a lawyer and I'd speak to judges and juries and the other side, I would often say to them, believe what you see. Trust the facts that are staring you right in the face. So when Donald Trump says something unhinged, do not roll your eyes. Roll up your sleeves. Let me finish where I started. This has been a heartbreaking year to be a Jew in America. The question is, will next year be even harder for us and for Americans of every background, for all of us who believe in freedom? And that answer is in our hands. The answer is on our ballots. And how many times have you read our history and asked, what were they thinking? Why didn't they stop it? Why didn't they act? And embedded in that question is this truth. We actually have a choice right now. And there's a fire in this country. We either pour water on it or we pour gasoline on it. Which is it going to be? That's the choice every one of us faces right now. Because fighting anti-Semitism and all forms of hate is a responsibility of every American. Kamala and I planted a pomegranate tree at the Vice President's residence this past October 7th. It commemorates both the pain and perseverance of the Jewish people. We pray that this symbol of hope will grow into a tree of life, reflecting the resilience of the congregation here in Pittsburgh of the same name. Our Proverbs liken the Torah to a tree of life, but there's an important condition attached. The full verse says it's a tree of life for those who hold fast to it. In other words, it's only a source of goodness if you choose to honor it. And that's the story of America too. Our Constitution only works if we choose to respect the rule of law. Our democracy only works if we choose to respect one another and if we elect leaders who serve us rather than serve themselves. As Ben Franklin famously said here in Pennsylvania, it's only a republic if we can keep it. So this is the most important election of our lifetimes. And as Kamala says, the most important election in our nation's lifetime. We're being asked whether we will protect America's promise as a welcoming society for Jews and for everyone, a nation where no one ever feels attacked or alone. There's only one candidate in this race who will bring us closer to that reality. In your gut, in your kishkas, you know that's true. And you know what we need to do to elect her as our next president. Thank you very much.